Good morning, Charlie.
How are you, Richard? How are you doing?
I did all sorts of errands this morning, scrambled to get back here by 1 o'clock.
Well, all right. I guess you made it. Good thing you're not in Denver. We're having our issues here.
I guess so.
We were at 93 degrees yesterday, and it's snowing right now.
Oh!
Yeah.
Snowing.
Angelo, how are you?
Hi.
Kudre said that it was 125 in San Luis Obispo. They've never had it that hot, ever.
I know. I mean, I heard. Well, we broke a record. We tied the record for days in the 90s. We had 75 of them. 3 days ago it was 101. Right now it's snowing, and tomorrow it's supposed to be in the low 20s.
Wow. That's improbable.
It's like, really? Who needs this?
Unreal.
I mean, we've got a 60-degree shift from yesterday to today in 24 hours.
Wow.
Nathan, I don't know if we ever met or not. Good to see you.
Good to see you. I don't know. I've definitely been in the same room as you before. I know that.
Could be.
That's not saying much.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, I mean, when you hang out with screen printers, you end up being around all of them at some point or another.
Very true.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
Many of them.
Hey.
Hello, Charlie.
Hey, Farley, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm really good.
Good,
Yeah.
good. Nice to see you.
Same wise.
Not bad considering we haven't started yet.
Yeah.
Happy to see you, Richard. That's the deal.
Well, Scott and I were here last 2 weeks ago.
That's true. It was just the three of us, which was actually a lot of fun, to be honest with you.
Scott Fresner, is it? Scott?
Yes.
Oy. My idol.
Well, we'll call him and tell him to get on the line here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We'll see if Scott shows up.
I learned a lot from his book, from the Bible.
Well, Scott is going to be on in 2 weeks. He's going to be the guest.
Oh, nice. Hey, can't wait.
Hopefully he'll have recovered from all his surgeries and stuff.
What's
Feeling
surgery?
better.
Huh? Oh,
He's definitely feeling better.
Oh, there you go. Now we get to see your smiling face at least. I don't have no sound.
You all speak too fast for me. You know, I'm Italian,
Not a
unfortunately.
problem. We slow down.
And I have
for you.
just 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes, but it's very, very glad. I'm very glad to see you all there.
Good to see
I miss traveling and meet you on the shows, and so.
I know. It's driving me crazy to not be going to any shows.
We're
or
about to
anything.
start Charlie's thing today, 2 weeks.
But,
Your name has already been mentioned.
not much you
I
can
learned
do.
everything I could from him. So
I leave
try and
you all
join if
to
you can.
do
Bye-bye.
your job. I hope to see you very soon.
I hope
Have
that
a great day.
the shows start over again. But in the U.S., I think they've canceled every show until January. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
We-
And I don't know if
Here
any
in
shows-
Italy, we're planning to make.
Where?
Here in Italy, maybe we can start in January, but I'm
Yeah,
not
well,
sure.
that's what we're hoping for in the U.S. But I dealt with the company that I do the show for in Germany in January, and they've cut their show way back from 5 halls down to 3. No additional people. I'm not even sure they're going to really have it, but we'll see. I'm just hoping that Long Beach comes off. That would be a real disappointment if it isn't.
Not a good moment, but we are strong.
Yeah, well,
All over the world, the screen printers are very strong people. So we will win.
Yeah,
Inter
well,
United.
unfortunately, it's not up to us. I wish the people who conducted the shows and stuff were able to put these things together in a little better manner.
Yeah, will be great. Will be great. Okay, I have to say you hello because it's evening and I'm very close to my dinner time. So
Oh,
enjoy the show,
Well,
enjoy the day. Go skiing, Charlie, if you have the snow.
Angelo, wonderful. Yeah, 93 yesterday, no today.
Yeah.
No, my skiing days are finished. They were finished 15 years ago.
Ah,
So
okay.
enjoy
But
dinner.
you can enjoy the snow.
Angelo, wonderful to see you.
Say hello to
Yeah.
everybody. Nice to see you.
Hello.
Hello.
Nice to meet you too.
It's been a pleasure. Nice to meet
bye,
you.
Angelo.
Ciao, ciao.
It's 12 in midnight in my place now.
Ah,
So I'm really keeping my eye open for Charlie here.
Well, thank you. It's always nice to see you come on.
Yeah. And today Mr. Richard is going to the topic.
I would love to answer questions. I
Okay.
don't have anything prepared, but I love questions.
Awesome. Okay.
I think we're quote unquote officially starting. So who knows who else will show up. But Richard, I mean, I know you obviously for I'm not sure how long we know each other.
35 years at least.
When did you get into the industry?
I started in 1979,
Okay.
and I started doing seminars for impressions actually pretty quickly in 83. I substituted for Brent Bruns, and Barbara Montgomery called me and said, "Can you substitute?" And I had no, it was not my subject. It was about nylon jacket printing. I knew how to do it, but I got his format, and that was my very first seminar, Long Beach, 1983.
83. Oh.
I started the workshop program for ISS in May of '83. That's when it kicked off. And so I think, since ISS started, which was, I think, in '78.
83, it's before halftone era, or is it already available, halftone screen printing?
Oh, sure.
Yes?
Oh, yeah. Printed
What
lots of
do you use?
halftone stuff.
Rugos, or there's no computer yet, right? At that time.
No, we use
Real cameras.
cameras and
Oh, okay.
separation film.
Ah.
Now, I was doing
Okay.
halftone work on T-shirts back in 1977. Actually, 76, but 77 is when I got my first big camera. I got a Robertson 480 low bed, which is a camera that has a 10-foot bellows, and I could do 24 by 36-inch film without a blowback. I didn't know how to do a blowback back then, but my dark room was 800 square feet. And my factory at that time was 15,000 square feet. And then a year and a half later, went up to 30,000 square feet.
Was that still in Brooklyn?
Yeah. Yeah, I had two floors. I had the second floor and the fifth floor. But the fifth floor is where I started. So every time I bought an automatic, I had to take out a whole bank of windows. We had to hire a crane to hoist we bought precision presses. We had to hoist it in. That's when you found out that getting the windows out was not a problem, but whoever put them back in was then responsible for them. So for the first one that we put in, I had to have a guy hang out in my shop all day and night for 5 days until we were able to finally find somebody who would weld in the windows again.
Oh, okay.
I tell you, the first
76.
automatic back then was funny. We had it hoisted in. It sat on the floor for 4 days waiting for a technician. It was wired and all. We didn't know which way to turn it on, and we were afraid if we turned it on the wrong way, the damn thing would blow up.
Mm.
On my second one, as it was being hoisted through the window, the electrician was hooking it up. When it touched the ground, probably 10 minutes later, the first screen was on it, and about 5 minutes after that, the first shirt came off of it.
Ah,
You know, precisions were easy. I mean, hooking them up was no big deal.
no leveling.
No, nothing. There's boom, drop it, and here it is.
76.
76, July of 76 is when I opened shop. And then 77 is when I got my automatic.
I was born in 76.
Then I know how old you are.
Yeah, young enough.
Well, you know, speaking of Brent Bruns, he hired me to work a show with him where he had a pallet that worked on magnets. So you
Right.
no squeegee. It was a roller
The
bar.
roller bar.
And I printed a 4-color process job on that for 3 days and never wiped any screens and never got any blurring, never got any dot gain or anything. I mean, it was just absolutely amazing. The problem was you could only do cut parts. You couldn't fit a t-shirt because the pallet was so big on the underside to house the magnet
magnetron,
and
yeah.
all of the movement. I thought Brent's, I actually sold about 3 or 4 of his manual presses. And if you don't want to print on them, you can just hook them to a crane and knock down buildings with them. They were the most amazing, the heavy duty machines I've ever seen in my life.
Overbuilt.
The whole thing was made of 2x4 tubular steel as opposed to what everybody else makes them out of.
And then he disappeared.
I know, you know, it's an amazing thing. He was an ex-Marine, I think. And
Yeah.
he was incredibly inventive. I mean, when I went to his shop, it was pretty interesting. Of course, he had his way of doing things and there was no other way as far as he was concerned. But yeah, I don't know where he disappeared off to. I mean, early 80s and then he just was gone.
He also had the first gigantic laser printer. It was bigger than 11 by 17. It was 18 by 24.
Really? Huh.
And I remember we made positives. You know, he was doing that at trade shows. That he was experimenting with laser positives that long ago.
Is that PostScript era or without PostScript? Yes.
It's too far ago. I don't remember. I don't think PostScript is around in the early 80s like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know the initial laser printers that everybody got involved with did have PostScript, but
Well, Apple and HP, but this is way before the mid 90s when Apple really invented the laser. This would be in the 80s. So it was, you know, it was unique.
yeah. Yeah, well, everybody, you know, the funny thing was when you go back that far, everybody's creativity really showed because you had to learn how to invent whatever it was you needed, whether it was film positives or, you know, I mean, if you remember Doug Brendel, so
Sure.
I trained him initially. He was the fastest I've ever seen using an X-Acto knife to duplicate an image. I mean, he was about as fast as a camera and was incredibly precise. You know, and today it's kind of like, you want me to do what with an X-Acto knife? How do you do that? I still have one of those micro cutters, which I love because you didn't have a pen, you had a hoop. And so you never had your fingers cramping on you from all the cutting that we had to do at one time.
I remember my grandmother. She has a workshop in the 80s. All the films are handmade with what we call afdek. I don't know. It's that reddish ink to block out all the
Oh,
lights. Yeah, and
It was
for lines or typography, we use what do you call it, rugos? Those letters that you scratch.
yes, it was a
Yeah.
Letraset.
Oh, retro set. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
I still have
But
a bunch of that and the pens down in my basement.
okay, Rotrings.
I looked in my drawer. I know I've got some Yolano dual
Yeah.
cutters and
Yeah,
but they're not in this desk.
I have.
Mm.
I think I still have a Ulano cutter, but I also have one of the micro cutters that was the blade looked like a pin, and you could sign your name with it in script. I mean, it was just absolutely amazing, and it was spring loaded, so you never cut through the backing film. You only cut the surface. But those all belong in a museum now.
Yeah, but I saw an screen printing artist from the UK. He's still doing old school way. Well, he's more into fine art, so it's not for T-shirts. Yeah. It was in a what do you call it? Print Club London or something. The book,
Ah,
yeah, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that's better.
I don't know if anyone else is are doing. I mean, it's I planned actually to make a YouTube content for old school filmmaking. Yeah, I mean, but I still have to do my research on it.
On old school filmmaking.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, those without computers, without inkjets, etc. So I mean,
I did all that.
uh,
That's how I started, all by hand
yeah,
and camera and cutting rubylith and
yeah,
combining all of that.
yes, exactly. That's something that most of this generation in Indonesia don't know. They only know Photoshop, Corel,
mm-hmm.
but besides of that, they don't know how to do the films.
No, although even back in those days when I had my big camera, I didn't know how to turn it on. I had to hire a union cameraman. His name was Reggie. I still remember it because I had to pay him $500 a week back in the 70s to run my camera. And he was not allowed 1 second of overtime. It's like when that bell rang at 5, whatever you were doing, Reggie, stop and get out of here, man. I am not paying overtime. But
Was it a union rule or what?
he was still part of the union. Yeah, I don't forget this was in Brooklyn.
Right.
But he did some killer separations for us, mostly because we were able to guide him into what we needed for screen print, because he came with great background on separation work, but that was all litho separation. And so we would go back. He would shoot, when you have your own. I mean, I had an automatic processor and everything, and so if we did a set of films, if we knew that they weren't quite right, we would go back to him and say, this is why they're not correct. What can you do about it? And he would just maneuver it around and boom, boom, boom. And there it was, all perfect. But when I did my very first set of color separations back in '77, I sent it to a color house in New York. Called them up, said, hey, have you done stuff for screen printers? Oh, yeah, we have. Oh, good. So I sent it to them. So my separations cost me $500. Got them back
500.
and printed them. And coming with an offset background, I went in, I made adjustments and color and made some adjustments, sent it back to them for a redo. The redo was $600 more. And so it was like, man, this is getting way out of hand. So on my second set, I actually sent it to Bill Wayner, who took it to Fred Clark. And so my second set of separations came from Fred. And about a year later is when I put in my whole dark room. And so having the stuff from Fred available made it a little bit easier for for Reggie to be able to look at it and understand what Fred was able to do to modify it for us. Of course, we had the luxury of, if it didn't work out, we could just go back in the dark room and redo it versus having to go back to Fred, although we ended up using Fred quite a bit, and of course became quite friendly with Fred over the years prior to his passing and stuff. He would always come out for our open house and always do the separations for the open house, which we actually won some awards on. I should pull it out. I know for our 13th anniversary, we took a silver and 4-color process for the shirt from the show, from the open house. But
In the
interesting times.
80s,
Huh?
in the 80s when we were in Dallas, Mark Kudre had a car, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to go see Fred Clark. You want to come along?" I went, "Yes." And we watched for an entire afternoon. Fred was a magician with the camera. He was just in a class by himself. So I don't know about Reggie, but watching Fred work, you understood why he charged so much and was so persnickety. There was no pushing him. That it was 7 days and that's it. You don't want it 7 days? Fine. Go someplace else. Okay.
Now he did some favors for us, but it was really for the open house. But he and Bill Wayner worked together, and I think it was really Bill who kind of guided Fred into what needed to be done in order for it to be appropriate for screen print, not for offset printing. And I always love what Bill did. I mean, he's one of those nuts who would spend 6 months to a year working in a place to learn how to do something and then leave and go to the next place to learn something more. And I know he got involved in stripping and all of that stuff way back in the 70s. And so when you saw, even the shirts that he printed, he just sent me one of his old shirts, which I remember from years back. But when you looked at his 4-color process stuff and realized it was done on wooden frames, it kind of blows you away as to what the quality was. I mean, much as I like what Kudre did on the Nakona boot shirts, I love the stuff that Bill did. I thought Kudre's may have been more correct, but they didn't have quite the life that Bill's did. I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, he was just able.
Well, Mark had to duplicate those posters.
Huh?
Mark had to duplicate those posters, so he had a different brief on what to do.
I think he was also using different inks than Bill, so that definitely had an impact on it. It's funny. I did my King Tut print, which I want to print at the shows whenever they start again. My original ones were done back in the late 70s using Union's Max Opaque colors, which they still have. Of course, they've updated them. When I was in Egypt and I was running that job, we were using inks from Turkey. The job looked really good until you put it next to what Union's ink was able to do.
Text was it, or
capacity and the ability to really build up correctly. And until you put things side by side, it's difficult to understand how much of an impact that ink has on what the finished product is like.
was that Fatex? The ink? Fatex from Turkey.
The one that I use from Turkey, not Inkwin. The name will come to me. I forget it now.
Okay.
But it was not bad, but it was definitely not as intense in color as what I was getting from Union Ink. And
Okay.
even when I shot the job, I ran that job at the SGIA show when it was in Minneapolis with Union Ink, and I still have some of those prints compared them to the ones that I did in Egypt, and huge difference. It's funny, when you deal with clients, sometimes you have to take the original and put it away and just deal with what you have in front of you so that they stop comparing it and just decide on whether they like what they see or not. The moment you have a side-by-side, I think you're shooting yourself in the foot. You create an issue for yourself that you really don't have to.
Okay.
And then, of course, the world got a lot better in the 90s when Terry Kaiserman invented True Tone. That certainly made my world a lot easier.
Terry,
What's that? Two-tone?
Union True Tone.
Yep.
Is
So
it an ink or what is it?
Yes, Union Ink Company in
Okay,
New Jersey.
we don't have Union Ink in Indonesia. So what's spreading American brands is Poly One Wilflex and Trutlan. After that, yeah, we have those Thailand inks.
Poly One owns them all now.
Yeah.
yeah, Poly One
And-
now owns Union, Rutland,
Ah.
QCM, Print Top, as well as Wilflex.
Okay. Okay.
They're now
they-
called
but each-
Aviant.
But each one has their own colorway. So even though Poly One owns everything, it doesn't really matter. Union's colors are still Union's colors, and Rutland's are still Rutland. And you know, if a distributor isn't carrying a particular brand, then you may not be able to get it. But when so I worked with Union on developing their four-color process inks back in the 70s. They had a chemist by the name of David Bruce from England. And I remember going to Richard and saying, hey, I need four-color process inks. And he said, go see David and make them. And so David's response was, well, what do you want me to do? And I pulled out a Pantone book. I said, I want those. So that's why it wasn't four-color process. It was actually 6 because you had rudamine and rhodamine red, etc. So he mixed it all together. We tested it out, and I came back to him. I said, the colors are good, but the intensity isn't there. And that's when they came out with their toners. I don't know if that was before your day, but you could buy a small can of toner.
Yep.
And you could boost the colors. And then later on is when Terry, of course, worked for Union, and the True Tones came in where it was more of a finish. But color-wise, if you look at all the four-color process inks on the market, Union is the only one that actually comes close to duplicating what the Pantone process colors look like.
Okay.
Okay, having worked with Rutland's are very fluorescent-y. Each of them is quite different. I know Andy Anderson used to use the stuff from Advanced Process Supply until that was gone.
Right.
I'm not sure who he went over to. I think that's one of the difficulties in this industry. I remember when all of the ink manufacturers, quote unquote, got together to decide on what colors were going to make up the real Pantone, the real four-color process inks. And they came away with nothing because every one of them thought that their color should be the one that would be the real deal. So in the end, nothing was accomplished.
The Plaque series of inks that came out of Excello, Advanced Process, they went to Rutland and were never the same.
You know, different pigments, different, slightly different formulations. When I had a friend from England who got a job in Denver to run Howie Emerson's shop way back. And he was using Cerakol's discharge in England and loved it. Well, wanted to run it here, so he bought the Cerakol discharge that was made here. And it was atrocious. It was like, this isn't what I understood. Well, different pigments, different situation, even though it's under the same name and quote unquote under the same formula, there are certain substitutions that had to be made in the US versus the UK, and it just killed the whole goddamn thing.
I used to bring Cerakol inks into the United States through Aruba because we had friends there, and the real Cerakol people here in the United States, they had a weak distribution until they really started in like the 1985 when Jeff McHugh created his distribution organization for them. But the puff ink from Cerakol was just amazing. And it was the only way you could get the really good stuff into the country.
Well,
where's Cerakol? Where's Cerakol from?
United Kingdom.
England.
England, okay.
And
We often use Cerakol for PVC. So until now, PVC.
There was
Serico is one of the best.
there was a time where Sericol actually owned Europe. I mean, no matter where you went in Europe, that's the only ink that you really got to see. There were a couple of other brands. I remember Dr. something or other's brand, I forget what. But really, I'd say 95% of the ink sold in Europe at that time was from Sericol. In the US, it fell on its face. They just couldn't produce it here, and they couldn't ship it over here and make it worthwhile.
That's why we had to bootleg it in. We had to sneak it in.
And
Yeah.
unfortunately, you had to pay quite a bit for that.
But it worked.
You know, obviously killed off a bunch of stuff. But those were the days. Nathan, whose ink are you working with?
Me?
Everyone.
Nathan.
Oh, Nathan. Okay.
Pretty much everyone. If you came in here, we pulled stuff off the shelves back there, a little bit of everyone's, because I think I'm a weirdo of my generation, but I like to dig in a little deeper. And so I have no exact loyalties to anyone because, like you said, no one's decided on this is the way to do it. This is the standard. So I use a little bit of everyone's based off what works best. And that's all subjective too, because, you know, everybody's under different circumstances too. So you can't really even compare. Like I can't compare what I'm printing here to someone in Phoenix, to someone in Alaska, to someone in that exact sense. But so I use a little bit of everyone. So I got a hodgepodge of stuff here. We got CCI, we got Virus, I've got Magnicolors, I've got Wilflex, I've got Union, I've got International Coatings, I've got 2 or 3 products that are Rutland. That's probably about it.
Well, I'm an advocate of, you know, each of the ink companies are really known for a particular line. And so if it were me, I would say, like, I have my favorites. If I'm doing simulated process, I'm on Rutland. If I'm doing vector, I'd be on Union. I think they have the strongest flat colors on the market. If I was doing a process job, depending on what that original looked like, it might be from Union, but it could be from one of the others, depending on how much you have to spark it up. So, you know, and certainly on special effects, you kind of have a wide variety of everything. I've been using Allure Glow, glow in the dark, discharge phosphorescent, and glow in the dark, and also their discharge reflective. Pretty interesting stuff. I never realized that you would be able to pull those things off, but quite interesting. I think
I've
having
only
a
used the
variety of different
plastisol
brands
stuff
to
so
hit
far.
different, huh?
I've only used Allure Glow's plastisol stuff so far, but their reflective is very good.
Their discharge, glow in the dark. I actually did a face mask with it of just, let's see, I got to dig out the face mask, but the image that I did was a set of lips on a face mask using pink glow in the dark. And then I shot a video where the only thing you could see are the lips moving.
Ah,
You know, I thought it worked quite well. And I did use a reflective. Seems to do a heck of a good job. The discharge reflective is pretty interesting. But, you know, it's a company that I was not that familiar with until I started this whole thing with Zoom. And they are one of my sponsors now. So they sent me a bunch of their inks to play with. And I have to admit, pretty interesting. I used their HSA reflective and the other week at a shop. And the surprising thing was, put it on screen, it didn't dry out. It probably sat there for about 15, 20 minutes and nothing. Started printing and it opened up.
Most of the HSAs we're using right now, the ones we've landed on, are that way. That, you know, we can leave them in the screen and walk away for 10, 15 minutes, come back, maybe hit it twice, you know, just open it back up, but good to go. And that was a big, it opened up a lot for us. Once we landed on the inks we liked and were able to figure out how to work with it well. And once it did, we use a lot of HSA here.
So I just finished, I'm doing my product testing later this week after the snow hits here, on a thing called the wall that I had Action Engineering put together for me, specifically for water-based. It sits inside the screen, almost touching the flood bar, so that when you're printing water-based, you don't get that buildup on the side where it gets crusty and dries out. So what this does is, as you're printing, it's pushing the ink up against the aluminum pieces that are curved at the top to dump that ink back into the usable area.
Like a wall.
So that's where the wall comes in. So I'm hoping on Thursday, if all of this clears out, that I can get to the shop and do my product testing and shoot a video of it. But I think it's something that, especially for water-based, when I was over in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, that was a big complaint, was their ink was drying out on the side. And so when you pushed it in, if you didn't do it on a regular basis, it got crusty and then it clogged the image area. This should eliminate that and allow you to go that much longer because of it constantly being fed back in.
Yeah, I think, you know, a big learning curve for us, especially the HSA, because I had used traditional water bases a few years ago and was really like, no way. If it's that hard to work with, let's not do it. And when we started getting into the HSA, one of the things that once it really started going well, and I had to learn because I was a plastisol guy and just open it up, stir it, go, was that, you know, very few of them come out of the box ready to go. You gotta understand the ink and modify it yourself and, you know, change it to what fits your needs. And once we kind of started figuring that out, playing around with the additives, our lives got a lot easier, but it took a while.
Yeah, well, I agree. I mean, you have to learn the systems. The difficulty is, as you go from one brand to another, they're similar, but they're not the same.
Nope, none of them have been the same. We've had to adjust each one.
I know even with plastisols, you know, which are so much easier to work with, but understanding the different brands and understanding the modification you may have to make or want to make in order to get the most out of it is part of the deal.
Nathan, you are working with a lot of inks type, right? And not inks type, I mean ink marks. Are you mixing between those inks, like red from Union and then mixing blue from Wilflex something, or are you keeping strict this ink type, this ink brand with this ink only? I mean,
No, we mix. We don't mix them together per se, like in a batch. But within a print, within itself, yeah. Now, of course, we don't mix like HSA with plastisol in the same print, that kind of thing. But you know, in plastisol prints or water-based or whatever, we'll use different ones. So, you know, specifically like with HSA, you know, we really like CCAI's Pure White for HSA. It's a really great product, but we don't use their colors. We use Mag colors for that.
Okay.
With plastisol specifically, for my underbase white, I really like International Coatings Cool White, the current one they have out. For the underbase, for the colors, we'll use Wilflex Rio. But then you get these weird things in where I like some of the specialty inks with Rutland, like their soft density natural. Wilflex doesn't really have anything quite like that. And like, as you experiment too, like with Rutland, like their foil resist is, I would reduce flexes. The resist put in there, it's going to be Rutland's put in there. So it's kind of a mix of all kinds of things to basically always get what is optimal, or try to at least.
Nice. Okay.
Nathan, where are you located?
Where?
I'm on the south side of Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
Is that the good side or the bad side?
I would argue there may be a little bit less money here. We'll just say that, but I would argue it's the more fun side.
Listen,
Okay.
when I had my shop in Brooklyn, we were in Bedford-Stuyvesant, and the only thing we knew is if we saw a white face, that it was either a detective trying to bust us for doing bootlegging, or it was some idiot who got lost.
Huh.
Period. So what's funny is that building is now co-op. What I paid for my 15,000 square feet of space is less than what an apartment goes for there.
Mm.
I think when I started out, I rented 15,000 on day one, and I think we were paying 5 cents a square foot.
Wow.
And then it went up every year for the next 5 years. But Bedford-Stuyvesant was not where you ever wanted it. I mean, it was so bad that I had to rent a 4,000 square foot building to put our cars into so that we would have cars when we came out at night. It's also where we stored all of our bootleg screens, so that it had a dual purpose, which was quite good. So being in the other part of the neighborhood was certainly part of pretty much every shop in this country for the most part. I mean, you know, be nice to go to a high rent district if you had the type of situation that justified it. But if you were just manufacturing, you had to look at the cost of overhead. Matter of fact, I wasn't far from where you were in Brooklyn when you worked for Yolano, Richard.
Now I lived in Fort Greene.
Yep. It's another wonderful area not to come out at night.
Well, it was definitely being gentrified like a steamroller when I was there. And when I've gone back recently, I don't even recognize the neighborhood anymore. All of Flatbush Avenue is absolutely massively different now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Over the last 10 years.
Where I was in Bed-Stuy, it has now changed over. Williamsburg was next to us. You can't even get to Williamsburg because of the cost.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just amazing to me how much things are going for now. But then again, I left there in '81, so.
In 2005, I was paying $2,400 a month for 88 or 880 square feet, an apartment.
Not bad.
Yeah.
So my daughter's friend left New York, what was it, about 2 years ago now, and had about a 650 square foot apartment that was running her $5,000 a month.
Wow. In Brooklyn?
Manhattan.
Oh, in Manhattan. Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, if you go over the bridge into Brooklyn now and you're hitting Park Slope in that area, you're going to pay the same thing.
Yeah.
You're going to be at the 4,000 to 5,000 or more range for an apartment, quite honestly, that if you sneeze, your neighbor down the hall would hear it.
Mm. I miss the city. I miss living there, but I couldn't afford it. As soon as I could, I bailed.
Yeah, well, I moved out to Denver in '82 and never looked back. Loved growing up there. It was a great place to come from, but I don't need to be there anymore.
A great place to visit.
Still is, yes. Still has things that really you can't find anywhere else. But unfortunately, some of the things you don't want to find anywhere else. But getting employees in my place was the easiest thing. You stuck your head out the window. You said, I need 3 more people. We would always have people coming in. We had projects across the street. And so there was always somebody that would need a job. And I remember someone saying, aren't you afraid of getting mugged at night? I said, no, I don't have to worry about that. I hired all the muggers.
I hired them.
Charles, how you doing down there?
Doing pretty good, Charlie.
Yeah. How's your weather doing? I mean, we have snow right now in Denver.
Well, it was about 95 here over the weekend. Today's about the same, and then but tomorrow we're supposed to get a cold front, and
Well, that's the one
I think it's going to be like 70, 65, something like that.
We were at 93 yesterday, and we're 33 right now. and going down into the 20s tomorrow.
Yeah, all that weather you guys got is coming down to
But we're
us.
warming it up a bit for you on the way down there. The only thing I'm concerned about, I've got a mulberry tree that I love, and they don't do well when it gets to extreme cold at this time of the year because they still have all the sap and everything in them. And so I was trying to figure out how to cover it yesterday. I didn't realize how much it had grown. There's just no way in hell of covering this thing. But
Yeah.
I was watching everybody that I know around here that's online picked all of their vegetables, anything that they could is in-house now because it wouldn't survive tomorrow. You staying busy down there though?
Yeah, we've been doing all right. You know, things are still a little bit slower because our schools still aren't in session. They're all online right now.
Yeah.
So, and sports aren't happening yet. So that kind of thing is still slowed us down a little bit, but we've picked up on other avenues.
I noticed some of the colleges and universities opened and are closed again.
Yeah.
How, excuse me, how is the pandemic doing over there? I mean, is it hitting the industry, or, I mean, I know several of my friends who are in retail, they almost collapse, but those who have an online store, I mean, they still order to me prints. But how is it in the States? I mean, is the job decreasing, or?
I think that's really dependent on the area that you're at, because initially I think everybody pretty much shut down, but then you know, now certain areas, certain states or cities, they're functioning a lot more, and their schools or sports or different things have opened up, and so they're getting back to normal in certain areas. But like for us, we're still not full operational in our location. So, you know, that still has an effect on somewhat when you're not, you know, restaurants are still highly restricted to how many people can be there. So they're having to deal with that, which translates over to our industry too. But I think I know some printers in different areas, they're fully operational now just because their areas have opened up. Just really depends on where you're at.
Okay.
I don't know if our zine is still feeling that impact or not, because we're in the same area, but
I'll be right with you.
You what?
Hello there.
Ah, there
Hello.
you are.
Nice to see you.
And now we have everybody's
reading
face on here.
I've been reading Richard's articles since 1994. Those old magazines. I think it was called screen printing. Right?
Exact.
And he always had a cartoon back regarding screen printing. Do you recall magazine?
Oh yes. It's still around. It's a small pamphlet that comes out every 2 months.
Which
those magazines was great. They were great. They were one that pushed me to where I am, and they had awesome articles. It was great. I enjoyed it. It was like I couldn't live without those days. I wanted to thank you for contributing. I really appreciate that.
Well, if you've got questions, I've got more old magazines than anybody else. The SGIA sent me all their old magazines. Screen Printing Magazine sent me all their old magazines. And so I've been collecting them for at least 30 years, since the 80s.
You know, I still have a copy of the Press magazine when it was a tabloid.
Right? I've got a lot of those too.
I was going to
And
speak.
don't throw them out. If
I
you've
did
got
a,
magazines, don't throw them out. Send them to me.
I think I still have those magazines, Zerd.
I've got a fair collection of magazines that I need to get out of here. I need to send them to you.
I would love it. I'm particularly looking for a printwear magazine with a green cover of a golfer on it. I think it's from 1995. It's the article that documents, I can't believe his name has just popped out of my mind. Inventor of Plastisol ink
Oh,
for Wolflex.
Don Petrie.
Don Petrie.
Yeah.
I can't. So
Hi, guy.
I cannot find that magazine. And so it's,
you know the story about how Wilflex got its name, don't you?
now tell me.
Okay, so Don he's the one who invented Plastisol. So he went to a shop where they were testing it out. And the biggest thing that they had to deal with in terms of Plastisol was its flexibility. And so the guy who was working with it asked him a simple question: will it flex?
Ah,
And he
Will
said,
it
yes,
flex?
it will flex. And that's where the name Wilflex came from.
Charlie,
Okay. Will it flex?
Charlie, what is the best white you suggest?
The best white?
Yeah, for not a simulate process, just a regular and the base and just paint.
You know, listen, every ink company comes out with probably a half a dozen new whites every year. And there you go.
Yeah, but that's the new one.
1990. Look at
Oh,
how
is that
thick it
right?
is. Look at how thick it is.
Yeah, back when we actually had printers.
Yeah.
You know, the issue of white ink is always going to be there. I mean, every ink company thinks that they have the best white, depending on the type of fabric you're going on, depending on whether you're going through fine mesh or going through a coarse mesh, whether you're on a manual or an automatic. I think
But for the auto,
huh?
for the automatic,
To
and
me, you know, I
also,
think everybody has their favorite situation. Listen, I don't print for a living. I just do consulting work. But when I go into a shop, if we're going to do simulated process, I still use Rutland's M3 white, which is, you know, maybe not considered the strongest white, but as a base white, especially using like a double squeegee and going through 230 to 305 mesh, gives me a great laydown.
when you suggest that to me, M2, and I've started it, and it works.
Well, yeah, I mean, the M2s still had all of the phthalates and stuff in them. So the M3 is phthalates.
Pretty expensive, but it does the work. It's expensive, but it's well worth it because you don't have a headache.
You know,
And I use
it always drives me crazy when people start talking about the cost of a gallon of ink. Oh, and this one is twice as much as the other. Great. So the question is, how well does it perform, and how much can you get out of that, and what is your cost per garment really? You're talking
Divide
about,
by 1,000.
you know, pennies. I mean, come on. Right. If that's going to make the difference, who cares? That was never a concern. You know, to me, it was you buy the best that you can. You don't look at the price tag, because the price tag is irrelevant compared to productivity.
yes. And the question that I had, I think I threw it at you about a few weeks ago, is
For a
right
printer.
now is
So I was just at a shop that bought the Canon. I forget the name of it. They've gone through 3 of them in about 4 months. So they're not very happy with Canon. I've heard mixed reviews, and I played with the Epson P400. It's not expensive, but it seems to, from what it sounds like, it actually is doing a better job than Canon. And unfortunately, Epson got rid of the 1430 and the 1400, which I loved. I still have a 1400 downstairs, and Not that I print out a lot of film, but I use it for other things as well. And it's just a fantastic unit. The problem, it was a $200 unit when it came out. And if anybody has one that's still in a box, they're asking $1,000 for it.
The P400 is the same printer, but they actually print a lot faster than the 1400 and 1430 did.
Doesn't seem to hold up as well, though.
Plastic gears.
Huh?
Yeah.
What was
Are you
that? Rich?
talking about the Epson?
Yeah.
You're
Yes.
talking about
The
Epson
P400.
P400?
Uh-huh.
And what RIP drives it? If you
What's
want
that?
to RIP. RIP
Yeah,
software?
I'm using Accurate.
Yeah, it works with Accurate perfectly.
Which version is that?
I'm using the Ruby.
Oh, that newer one. Because
Yeah.
I'm still running the 4880. Man,
Okay.
giving me much trouble. 4880.
Is giving you trouble?
Well, I gotta clean it. I gotta, it's just when it sits. When it sits, I
You can't let it sit.
I tried
That's the
to run
whole
every.
thing.
I tried to run it every 4 days. It's still.
That's what I was talking to that mentioned something about taking the cartridges out and putting cleaning cartridges in if you're not going to use it. And this way, it'll keep the heads fresh. Do you have a set of cleaning cartridges?
So you put 8 cleaning cartridges?
Well, you change all your cartridges to cleaning cartridges. And this way, number one, it costs next to nothing to run it. So just to run a sheet of paper through or whatever doesn't really mean anything, but it'll keep the heads fresh and it'll keep them from drying out.
Yeah, but I have to get. I mean, getting another 4 sets of cartridges is, I would say, $300 because there are options on them.
I'll shoot you a text later on, or an email later on about cleaning cartridges.
All right. Well, I'm going to try to tackle that today, see if I can fix it again. And I find another company that actually you can buy the chips on. Did you know that?
Yep.
Chip resetter?
No, just the chip. You know that cartridge, because after a while, these chips on the cartridge is bad, and you have to buy the whole cartridge, which is, if you buy it individually, shipping is about $50. And that's not a big deal, but you wait for it to come to Chicago. So your machine is going to sit there over 7-8 days, and again, they dry. You know which chip I'm talking about on the site?
Got me out of my range.
No, it's this one.
On the 4880, the cartridges are so much larger,
They are.
as he's going to show you. Yep.
They
Okay.
go bad. So this is a refillable. Then when they go bad, you have to buy this specific cartridge. You can't just have an extra of black and use it. You have to have this. So after play, you can actually buy this just now. Just it. I'm gonna try it and let you know. Anyhow. So P400 Epson V Accurate, and
Yeah.
they sell the ink also.
If you go online, go to B&H. They're usually pretty well stocked, and they also ship for free.
Yeah, then I gotta contact and get the Accurate, the Ruby, I guess.
It may work on the old. I'm not sure if it works on the old Accurate or not, but it might.
It still works on the old one, but the Ruby is just their newest version.
Yeah.
They used to work on Black Pearl and the one before that as well.
The one
No,
before
I
that
think
was
the
just
one
called
that I
Accurate. No second name or anything.
No, I don't think it works on that. The one I have on will work P400. And then do I get cartridges, like refillable cartridges, or you
Yeah,
can just direct?
you can get refillable cartridges, I believe. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I know you can. I'll shoot you a text.
All right, sir. That will solve some of my problem, because just move around and fix this inkjet. Inkjets are, I have a brand new FB lates here, and it's always problem, always. Just the EcoSalt latex, all having problem. Unless you run them constantly, and then after 3 years, just toss them away and get another one. That's the only way. So, what Nathan White using? What White you're using, Nathan, that you like for just under base and just a regular print?
The question is, what are you doing with it? But you know, so if we're doing an underbase white with plastisol, now keep in mind that you can't compare my shop to yours, so I don't know what mesh you're using, your tensions, everything else. But for underbase white, we're typically using International Coatings Cool White for plastisol. For same thing, vector stuff, plastisol highlight white, I generally use Wilflex Bright Tiger. And now certain people have been around long enough will argue with me on this and say, no, that ink's junk. You have to get the new version of it. Don't get the old one. Don't pull some old Bright Tiger from out of some wherever. You got to get the new one with the blue label. If you got the old stuff with the yellow label, it's not the same thing.
Yep.
But Bright Tiger typically for highlight whites is really nice. It's not good as an underbase white because it has a little bit of puff in it. So it's gonna, you know, it's not great for an under. Now, when we get over to HSA, I'm pretty much for all my whites using CCI Pure White. I've had really good results as well with Magnacolor's Aquaflex 2 White, and have had pretty good colors with Virus. So just kind of depends on what you're using in your application. We use Saudi Hydro Mesh for everything. And I'm pretty adamant about keeping our tension over 20 newtons.
Yeah, Charlie put me to new roller frames many years ago. Actually, yeah. So Newman roller
Back when we both had hair on our heads.
What's that?
I said back when we both had hair on our heads.
Yeah, yes. I remember when you came to my shop with your first Z BMW, remember blonde, I think.
I remember it well. That was my first BMW that was in '96. It was my blue one.
Yep, and I had an Arrow multi-printer.
Huh?
I had an Arrow multi-printer.
I remember it well.
Remember those memes?
Well, back in those days, there were two machines. There was a round, which was an Arrow, and there was the oval, which was precision, and that was it.
Yeah.
So it was an easy choice. You either went round or oval.
Yep.
Hey, Nathan, let me ask you a question, man, a print question.
I don't know.
No.
Oh, it depends. Proper answer, Nathan, is it depends.
It depends. Every shop is different. That'll take you far. So no, just in your process with using something like a Bright Tiger, which I don't care which ink, why would you on a highlight white not go even something like just like a cotton white that is even a little bit less expensive, a little bit easier to push with, you don't need all the blockers and puffs, puff blowing agents and stuff in that. I'm just concerned. Just a question.
I don't care because I could get a cheap cotton white ink, and like has already been mentioned, we're talking about a penny. So that doesn't matter. And any of you that know me pretty well know I charge it, so it doesn't matter.
I wasn't asking more. Yeah, I wasn't asking more from a cost thing. I was just thinking cotton white
From a technical
better
side,
printability.
I would argue with anyone to try a white and do that one side by side with the same testing and find one that is brighter white, shears better. So that's the biggest thing to me is the consistency of the ink. I don't know enough about how it's manufactured to tell you why, but it shears. It's not, it's very thick and bright. It's very opaque, but it shears, like just cuts, just perfect. Not sticky, not tacky. And I've yet to find another one in plastisol that is quite that good. So what I do anytime anybody brings me in, because as you guys all know, you get the salesman that comes in and goes, my white's the best, you got to try it. So I got a screen that's got a swatch. I put it in that screen, I run it through that swatch, and we put the swatches side by side each other, and literally I will, if that one wins, I will throw out everything we use and we'll switch to the new. That's how I landed on Bright Tiger, was a couple years ago. That came in, I didn't believe it. I tried it out. It's pretty good. So nothing has beat it since I had, gosh, what was it? There was one, now I can't remember what it was, that hung, that was equal to it, but it was harder to get, was the only reason I didn't switch on that one. The distribution wasn't quite there.
Sure. No, valid answer. Thank you.
And you said you're using the cool, you're using IC Cool for your underbase?
Yeah.
And why not just use that as your highlight white as well? Is it that much of a difference with the Bright Tiger?
I would argue, yes, it's got a little bit more of a hand to it. I like Bright Tiger for the smoothness of it. I would argue that IC Cool's got just a bit more of a hand, and it's not quite as bright white. So, I mean, and we're talking, I'm annoying with my processes. I'm talking fractions of difference at this point. You could very easily use it and have a very good print still.
And I think what you're saying right there is the key, especially for a highlight on what you're looking for. Brightness, which all comes down to the optical brightener in the white. So,
and I know that one has a ton of that stuff in it.
Well, and I think there's a couple versions of optical brightener. Aren't there yellow optical brighteners and blue ones? They don't use the yellow so much anymore. But yeah.
Somebody smarter than me would have to answer that.
Yeah, I don't know. I was hoping here this group's smarter. Go, Richard, Charlie. Go.
I guess no one in this group can answer that. I guess we're not bright enough for something.
Charles, what do you think, man? Come on.
We don't have any ink on, so it's difficult to get an answer on that.
Yeah.
We're all involved with using the stuff, not making the damn thing.
Optical brightener, is that titanium? Or is it?
Optical brightener. It's what
they're chemicals.
You can
optical.
Yeah, go ahead, Richard. Sorry.
Optical brighteners are a chemical that work like a fluorescent. So they take all the light that you bombard it with, but it converts the ultraviolet energy that's invisible into visible light. That's how fluorescent also works. And so it appears brighter. And almost always they add it to, for instance, laundry detergent so that your whites look whiter. And so when you go into a nightclub and there's black lights, all of a sudden men in white shirts are glowing because they've used oxidol or something like that on their laundry.
Okay.
Same thing.
So is it safe to say that it's just reflecting the color back?
Well, it's reflecting more than visible because it's taken the invisible ultraviolet energy that's not visible to your eye, and it converts it, like in a prism, converts it into visible light. And so what Alan is mentioning is that it could be yellowish, the brightest color of the spectrum, or it could be bluish, which is closer to ultraviolet, and it just bends a little to get it into our visible spectrum. And so it appears brighter because there's 110% light reflected now, or 110% of what is visible light.
See, Richard knew he was holding out on us.
He was busy reading it in the magazine while he was talking.
I heard Google going. I know without optical brighteners, white plastisol against that white polyethylene bucket would look gray. it look out a washed out grayish to it.
Right, because that's what those, the powdered titanium dioxide never looks
Right.
white. It's got all that other stuff in it.
Yep. And I know there was, I'm not going to say the manufacturer, they had an ink line that was using under certain lights that looked a little bit more yellow. It was a great ink. I liked it, but it looked a little bit more yellow because it had a yellow optical brightener.
I'm shocked.
Yeah,
Shocked what?
that somebody would do it, huh?
So how is Bright Tiger? Bluish, yellowish?
Bluish.
It is bluer. Yeah, it's cool.
Okay.
If you still go to the grocery store, you can find bluing.
Right.
And bluing by itself is what grandma used to put in the laundry for white shirts. And that blue tint literally does the same thing. It
Ending.
bends the light. Makes it look bluer, which appears brighter.
That's what they did to the white inks years back. As they came out, you could see the blue in them.
Right.
And I would bet $1,000 that every white ink that you're looking at has an optical brightener in it.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
So Richard, let me ask you, if I start mixing OxyClean to my ink,
Then you've got a shirt that cleans itself.
and it'll be super bright.
There you go. While I have you guys on, 2 weeks from now, I'll have Scott Fresner will be the invited guest, just so you know.
Nice.
Scott Fresner didn't answer his phone.
Probably
Okay.
out back smoking a cigar while Pat is away or something.
Yeah. Sitting on the back watching the javelinas.
This Scott Fresner?
I saw you had
Oh yeah.
a
Bible.
you have someone.
First screen printing book ever.
So I taught for Scott back in the early 80s. So I just found the flyer that has both his picture and my picture in it. And
Just your picture in it.
after looking at it, I realized why his son was calling me Dad. Both Scott and I looked pretty much the same back then. But I'll pull that out. I'll have it available when we come on in 2 weeks.
We'll all hold up our spiral bound, plastic bound copies, the black and white copy of the book.
But I
I
still
think
have.
this,
I have.
I think this is your picture.
Oh, there you
That's
go.
he's selling his Newman roller frame videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, using roller frames.
Yeah. I remember flying down there just to shoot that and a couple of other videos. We did 3 videos in about an hour.
Oh,
We went boom, 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 finished, out the door. But I do you have Scott Fresner's Encyclopedia of Screen Printing?
No.
I do.
Not available.
Well, most of the stuff in there was mine, so that's why I ended up with a copy. But it's literally that thick. It's got to be 1,000 pages.
Yeah,
I got the
yeah.
binder version and the book version.
Now I have the black book.
I'll wait for the PDF version.
I don't think you're going to. It was before the days of the PDF.
Yeah.
I think he has it on his website, actually.
My.
The encyclopedia?
I think. Maybe not. Maybe it's the other book.
Yeah, he's given away how to print.
Yeah.
Maybe the last 2 years. But we've talked for maybe 15 years about redoing the encyclopedia.
There you go.
And he lost all the word perfect documentation that went into it. So I was going to
this thick.
scan.
So this is it.
This
That'd
is
be a whole lot of retyping to do.
You can see how.
I would scan it.
Let's see, how many pages was this thing? Oh, the last page is page 1030.
okay. Ooh.
There's a weekend project.
Yeah.
Man, that would take forever to scan all that.
I would.
No, I've got a scanner that'll do 20 pages a minute.
This is what is left, this one.
Right.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
I don't know where.
Okay.
That was the first thing. That was the first thing I bought.
Yeah.
I got
Yeah,
The
this was
Bible.
1985.
1985.
Yep.
Yeah.
What, the encyclopedia, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was made by Arizona Lithographics.
So it's before the computer era, or is it all already in?
Oh, no, it was before the computer. He wasn't using a computer back then because what they have is the typesetter was listed as Walsh and Associates. So it was definitely not on computer.
Yeah.
May have been linotype or something like that, but
I'm sure.
Well, he might have written it because we had computers in 1985, but
yeah.
1985.
he wrote it in WordPerfect, and somehow he lost the thing. We'll ask him these questions in 2 weeks.
I was going to say,
Okay.
you can ask him in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I will. Looking forward to it.
these
I
fabrics.
even remember some of the
go
shirts that
beyond
are in here. Frightening. Oh, well. Amazing.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, it's been nice having you all on. Hope to see you in 2 weeks.
Glad to be here.
If you guys have questions or anything, my email is drprint@aol.com. It's drprint@aol.com. Other than that, you can just find me. And Richard, thanks so much for being the guest on here. Hopefully, we'll get you and everybody else back in 2 weeks with Scott on.
Very good.
Yeah.
I'm sure
And
we'll
before we
choose
go-
bad about some of the old days when I first met Scott and when you did. But thanks for all of you being here. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Same wise.
All right.
Charlie, I have this recorded. Is it
Yeah.
okay if I share in my group?
Absolutely. I was going to say, if you need
Okay.
recording, I have it recorded as well, so I can certainly get that over to you if you need it.
No problem. I have it already.
Perfect.
I've tagged you. Okay.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thanks so much all for being here. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Charlie.
Have
Thank
a
you.
great week, everyone.
Thank you, Richard.
I'm going out to shovel snow. Can't believe it. It was 93,
Unreal, I know.
93 yesterday, and now I've got to go and shake my trees to get the snow off. Great. On Saturday, it'll be 80. Stupid. Anyway, thanks, guys.
Who are you going to
See you
call?
guys.
Typical. For
Yeah, bye.
Funny. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye now.